Qualification for the 2026 World Cup has begun. Paraguay and Peru played out a 0-0 draw to kick off the long journey to a World Cup with a brand new format. With 2 years, 8 months and 15 days left to go, 208 countries will battle it out to decide who will join hosts Canada, America and Mexico in the final. This World Cup increases the number of participants from 32 to 48. Almost a quarter of the world's nations will qualify for the finals. This increase in teams has not been shared equally between the 6 continents. In fact, the luckiest continent will get 166% more teams than in 2022, whilst another will barely get 23%. We're going to explain how qualification will work for each confederation and simulate the results as we go. So starting with the host continent, North America, which has received the second highest percentage increase in slots at 92%. 6 CONCACAF teams will qualify directly and there are 2 playoff slots available. The playoffs will involve 6 teams from 5 of the continents, 2 of which will qualify for the finals. So that's why each playoff spot is worth a third of a direct spot. These are the 32 teams that will be competing in the CONCACAF region. Hosts America, Mexico and Canada won't be competing as they've all already automatically qualified for the finals. The first time 3 countries have done so as hosts. The extra slots will provide a massive opportunity for a World Cup debut to the likes of Curacao, Guatemala and Antigua and Barbuda. In March 2024, the first rounds will start, with the 4 lowest ranked nations, currently Anguilla, British Virgin Islands, US Virgin Islands and Turks and Caicos Islands, playing a 2-legged game to qualify for the second round. The other 28 teams will then join those 2 winners in 5 round-robin groups. The top 2 of each group will progress to the third round. A big casualty already in the simulation, with Dominican Republic finishing above Panama to eliminate them. Round 3 consists of 3 groups of 4. The group winners qualify directly for the World Cup finals and the 2 best group runners-up go to the intercontinental playoffs. So Guatemala qualify for their first ever World Cup along with Costa Rica and El Salvador. Curacao and Jamaica will go to the intercontinental playoffs, with Antigua and Barbuda narrowly missing out. Moving now to the region with the least national teams, South America, who will have 40% more slots for the 2026 World Cup. CONMEBOL will keep the same qualifying format. All 10 teams play each other twice. Only this time, the top 6 teams qualify directly for the finals, which all but guarantees that Brazil and Argentina will qualify. This will probably be Venezuela's best chance yet of qualifying. They remain the only South American team never to play at a World Cup. Ecuador actually started with -3 points for falsifying birth documents during the last qualification campaign, which isn't shown in this simulation. So Paraguay qualified for the first time since 2010, Bolivia will go to the playoffs, Peru and Chile will once again miss out on the finals. Heading across the Atlantic now to Europe, and we arrive at the continent that least benefits from the 48-team expansion, at least in relative terms, as whilst they do get 3 more slots, that's only a 23% increase on the number of slots they had in 2022. UEFA is also the only confederation which won't have any teams in the intercontinental playoffs. These are the 54 teams that will be competing, assuming Russia will still be suspended come 2025. With only a modest increase in slots, we're less likely to see any European debutants than we are from the other continents, but Finland, Albania, North Macedonia and more will all look to be one of the extra 3 countries that qualify. All of the teams will be drawn into 12 seeded groups of 4 or 5 teams, with the 12 group winners qualifying directly. The 12 runners-up will go to a playoff round, separate from the intercontinental one. Hungary qualified for their first World Cup since 1986, San Marino actually get a point, and Luxembourg are only 1 point away from a playoff place. If your country finishes outside the top 2, all hope is not lost, because out of the remaining countries, the 4 that ranked highest in the 24-25 Nations League also go to the playoffs. So using last year's rankings, that would be Portugal, Netherlands, Scotland and Bosnia. The playoffs are split into 4 paths, with each team playing a semi-final and a final. So Portugal and Belgium both miss out on qualification, and there's no debutants coming from UEFA. Africa, in absolute terms, received more extra qualification slots than any other continent, with 4 more direct slots and 1 inter-confederation playoff slot. Out of the 54 African nations competing, Mali, Burkina Faso and Cape Verde are perhaps the most likely to make their debuts. With a similar format to Europe, 54 nations will play in 9 groups of 6 teams. Each group winner qualifies directly to the World Cup, and the 4 best ranked runners-up will play a mini playoff tournament to decide who goes to the intercontinental playoffs. Mali will play in their first World Cup finals, along with Libya and Burundi coming out of absolutely nowhere. African giants Nigeria, Ghana and the Ivory Coast are all eliminated. The 4 best ranked runners-up will then play this playoff, and Madagascar will come out on top. They'll go to the Interconfederation playoff. Asia gets 51% more teams, and they arguably have the longest and most brutal qualification process. There'll be 46 teams hoping to qualify, and looking at the potential debutants, we might be seeing Uzbekistan, Jordan and Bahrain at their first World Cup. It becomes obvious how cutthroat AFC qualifying is when we see that all of these teams, the bottom 20, will play a single home and away playoff, with only the winners going through to the next round. All of these nations, regardless of the hard work they may have put in over the last 4 years, can see their World Cup dreams die in the space of a week. The second round consists of teams ranked 1 to 26, joining the first round winners in 9 groups of 4. The top 2 go through to the third round. Malaysia do well to top their group, and they're the lowest ranked team left behind India and Lebanon. In round 4, there are 3 groups of 6, from which the top 2 qualify directly to the World Cup finals. Finishing 3rd or 4th puts you through to a 4th round. Vietnam qualify for their first ever World Cup, and last year's host Qatar are eliminated. Japan could still miss out. Uzbekistan and Lebanon keep their hopes of a debut alive in the 4th, but still not the final round. 2 groups of 3 play each other once on neutral ground. The group winners qualify directly to the World Cup, and the 2 runners-up go through to the 5th round. So Japan do qualify along with UAE, who qualified for the first time since 1990. Uzbekistan and Iran will go on. The 5th round, I promise, actually is the last. The 2 teams play each other home and away, and the winner goes to the Interconfederation playoffs. After all that, Uzbekistan's dream sadly dies, and Iran will go to the Interconfederation playoffs. We finally arrive to the last continent, Oceania. Even though they only receive 1 extra direct slot, that equates to a 166% increase on what they had previously, as this is the first time that OFC will have 1 guaranteed berth at a World Cup. New Zealand, as the only current Oceanian nation to ever qualify for a World Cup, are by far and away the best team in this region. Think Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga, but on steroids. But nations like the Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea seem to be improving, so we could see one of them clinch the automatic qualification spot. Even if New Zealand do end up on top, we will still see history. No OFC team apart from New Zealand and previously Australia have ever qualified for an international playoff. The OFC only announced the qualifying format a few days before this video is released, which was a bit of a relief because the original script basically just read in the first round, which will involve the 4 lowest ranked sides, including the unranked American Samoa and Tonga, as they did not compete in last year's qualification. A mini knockout competition is played, and Tonga will end up advancing to the next round. The other 7 nations will then join the first round winner in 2 groups of 4, with the top 2 of each group advancing. No real surprises apart from maybe New Caledonia finishing bottom of their group. The third round is a straight knockout. The winner will qualify directly for the World Cup, and the runners-up go to the Intercontinental playoff. So Solomon Islands managed to scrape a win on penalties against New Zealand, meaning they'll go to their first ever World Cup, and New Zealand will go to the Intercontinental playoffs. So we now only have the Interconfederation playoffs left to explain. The 2 highest ranked sides will get a bye, who will play the winners of 2 knockout games between the 4 unseeded countries. The 2 winners qualify for the 2026 World Cup. So Iran deny Curacao their debut by beating them on pens, and Jamaica qualify for their first World Cup since 1998. So in 3 years' time, these could be the 48 teams playing in the 2026 World Cup.